Our message was this: you can't take on New York values and win, Mr. President. If you turn against the values of your hometown will fight back.
And joining us now, that man right there, fresh off his re-election as the Democratic mayor of New York City, Mayor Bill de Blasio. Mr. Mayor, welcome. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
So,
good feeling. We
were talking about the journey of your 4 years, your first term. First time, obviously, being elected mayor of a major city, and there were some stumbles along the way. Yeah. What did you learn over 4 years that allowed you to win by almost 40 points 2 nights ago?
I'll tell you something, Willie. In this work, you better be learning every single day. And it's a humbling experience. And what I learned is go out to the people, go out to every neighborhood, including places where you're not popular, and talk about the changes you're making in people's lives that are tangible. I had 43 town hall meetings. And, you know, I have 8.5 million constituents. I always say every single one of them has a strong opinion. And I heard a lot of those strong opinions, but it helps you grow to listen to what's on people's mind. So they wanted to hear very tangible change. We showed specific ways we're going to create more affordable housing, specific ways we were going to fix the schools and do things like give pre-K to all the kids in New York City. And when people actually saw those things starting to happen, it opened their mind up to the direction we're going in. We reduced crime, we reduced stop and frisk at the same time, we showed police and community could come back together, and it worked. But I'll tell you, this is a message I would say to all Democrats. Get out of your office, go out into the community, talk to people, listen to their concerns, and show them you can make a difference in their life that they can touch and feel, because otherwise they're not going to be moved.
There were some moments in regards to the police department where, you know, at police officers' funerals, some of the officers turned their back to you, but I think there was a dissonance, and I talked to leadership at the NYPD, and they say, no, actually, we love the mayor. I mean, he's a great mayor to work for. He gives us what we need to do the job. A lot of them supported your ending stop and frisk. Yeah. Talk a little, if you can, about your evolution with the police department over 4 years.
Well, Willie, you know, the police leadership in this town is amazing, and I was proud to support them and give them the resources. We added 2,000 more officers on patrol. We created a neighborhood policing approach meant to bond police and community again and literally get people on a first-name basis, knowing each other and having that mutual respect. And we created some of the strongest anti-terrorism tools we've ever had. Actually have the biggest anti-terrorism force of any police force in the country. So the police leadership knew I was in favor of investing in them. The union, look, it's not a shock. The police union often stirred the pot. That's some of what they do all over the country. But I think a lot of the rank-and-file officers saw over time that I believed in making real investments in them, more training, better equipment, all the things that could make their lives better and safer. And over time, I think it really helped to create a more positive atmosphere. And I got to tell you also, look what's happening around the country. We need police and community to come together. And one of the ways to do that is to create a philosophy that says we're going to train our officers to de-escalate conflict, build personal relationships in the community, and get everyone feeling like, hey, we're 100% on the same side here. We got to help each other. Community has to help police, too, to do their job. And we've seen that happen in New York City. Crime's gone down 4 years in a row, and we're the safest big city in America. I'm very, very proud of that.
Joe's got a question for you. Joe?
Yes, Joe.
Yeah, I do. So, Mr. Mayor, you were reelected mayor of the biggest, greatest, baddest city in America and the world, we will all say. You're the first Democrat reelected since 1985. Yep. That's a pretty extraordinary achievement as well.
Thank you.
You win by almost 40%. This is the landslide to end all landslides. And I got to believe when you woke up the next morning, the greatest thing in the world for you was to see that you had finally won over the city's tabloids. So let's put those tabloids up right now. Come on, man. What do you have to do to get a little respect here? What? Come on.
Joe, I was not surprised. I was not surprised. That's why I was impressed by their creativity, though. You know, you win a landslide victory. I'm thinking, what are they going to do with this? But they found a way. You got to give them credit for that.
Yeah. So what is the challenge moving forward? Yeah. What is? And let's just talk about the one challenge. What is the one big challenge that you would like to accomplish over the next 4 years?
Look, the challenge in New York City, and I think it's a challenge all over the country, is still fighting income inequality and helping working class and middle class people to have an economic future they can believe in. And you know, when I ran 4 years ago, I said, look, what's happening here is the whole social fabric's being undermined because there are so many people working so hard, harder than ever, and they're not getting anywhere, and they don't feel a lot of confidence in their economic future or their kids' economic future. What we focused on is putting resources, literally putting resources back in people's hands. When we did pre-K for all the kids and we did after school for all middle school kids, those were free. That took a financial burden off of families. A paid sick leave took a financial burden off of folks who were sick and were going to lose a day's pay if they went to the doctor. We took away that challenge. We worked to bring up the minimum wage. But there's so much more we got to do. So my goal right now is a huge affordable housing plan. It's going to reach 750,000 New Yorkers, and they would pay no more than 30% of their income in rent going forward. Again, take away the biggest expense in people's lives as a burden, which is housing, and a plan to create 100,000 new good-paying jobs in New York City. This place has to remain affordable for working people, and one of the things we can do is create better-paying jobs. I mean, we have a great tech sector here in this city, for example. Film and TV industries booming in this city. A lot of different pieces of our economy are working, but they got to work for everyday people in all 5 boroughs, and we got to get them to a kind of job that they can live on for the long term. That's going to be a lot of the focus of these next 4 years.
You know, Mr. Mayor, a lot has always been said and written when it comes to politics about the coastal elites, West Coast, East Coast.
Yeah.
Except when you go to Washington Heights or Astoria or Staten Island, you see America.
That's right.
Uniquely in this city, I think more so than any other place in America.
Yeah.
And yet we live with this constant fear in the country of, a lot of people do, of the other.
Yeah.
What do we do about that?
Well, first of all, the elites are part of the problem, whether on the coast or any place else. And we have to confront that. Anyone who looks down their nose at their fellow Americans or their fellow New Yorkers is part of the problem. And I get very upset when I hear people disdain everyday people and working people. You know, Joe has spoken powerfully about this, about the folks who go to the cocktail parties in Manhattan, but have never been to Staten Island. That to me shows a misunderstanding of the kind of society we have to have where everyone's respected. And working people who make the society come together, who make it all function, deserve our respect. And this is a problem in the Democratic Party, too. To the previous conversation you guys had earlier, I think the Democratic Party's got to refocus on working people of all backgrounds. And what transcends the question of identity politics is economics. There are people of all backgrounds who need a better economic reality, who need opportunity. We should be speaking to that, and we should go to them. And we should go to places where people are doubting us and have the conversation, because when you're talking to someone, you value them. If you go to someone, it means you value them and respect them. And so that, to me, is part of overcoming this whole concept of the elites, because the elites are not comfortable with the notion of a society that actually serves working people. And that's the society I think we should be building right here in this city. I think that what you saw on Tuesday was an affirmation that people want to believe their government's on their side and actually doing something tangible in their lives. We showed them enough for them to believe the government could work for them, and they want more.
Pivoting off of that, what exactly is the lesson from Tuesday, more broadly, from sea to shining sea, of these very different type of candidates who won? You have a candidate like Ralph Northam, who's considered to be more like a centrist establishment Republican. Then you have, for example, the House of Delegates level in Manassas, Virginia, a woman who's a part of the Democratic Socialists of America. I mean, what is the lesson for Democrats about what their model should be to appeal particularly to moderates in these Republican-leaning districts, or that are held by Republicans?
Sure, and Northam is someone who I think understood working people's lives and understood the whole state. So even if he might be more moderate than some of us, I still think he went out to people and talked to them about a direction for the state. I think that's half the battle right there. And this is what Democrats used to be very good at and should be again. A central message around people's economic needs, showing that we could use government as a positive tool to improve their economic reality and that of their children ahead, and then going out to people in every corner. This party started receding from whole swaths of the country and not contesting things. Huge mistake in my view. You go everywhere. You contest every inch. And when you do, some surprising things happen. People hear something they like. And things start to move. So look, I don't buy it was just a rejection of Trump at all. That kind of clean sweep, that blue wave is not just about Donald Trump. It's also about the fact that 3 million more Americans voted for Hillary Clinton than Donald Trump. The country is becoming more progressive. Look across the board on Obamacare. The country now supports it. On immigration reform, comprehensive immigration reform, American people would actually like to see that. You go down the list of issues, there's an emerging progressive majority in this country. The the problem is Democrats have not been tapping into it by contesting elections and going out to the grassroots. So I think Tuesday was the beginning of that turn towards a new approach.
Mr. Mayor, you know, you've already heard this, but this will be amped up now since you're now a two-term mayor of New York City, that there are people who are going to want you to run for president in 2020.
Willie, that's the sweetest thing you've ever said to me.
No, I'm not saying it. These are people I've spoken to, but it's going to be a free-for-all. You know, there are going to be all kinds of people who want to come in and run against Donald Trump. I understand you're 36 hours away from your re-election. But is that something you would consider if the party came to you and said, we think you're the guy who could take out Donald Trump? Would you consider running for higher office?
My focus is New York City, Willie. I've got 4 years, and it's going to be 4 years of intense, urgent action to do everything I want to do in this city. That's what I'm here to do.
I understand that, but what if the party came to you? Would you at least listen? Would you consider it? And they said, we've looked at all the numbers. You're the guy who can beat Donald Trump.
I think in Willie's rich fantasy land.
It's not my fantasy land. It's parties.
You're very kind. Look, I'll tell you this much. I'm ready to serve for the next 4 years as mayor of New York City, but in the meantime, I want to help this party in every way I can to get back to reaching working people and to come up with a clear progressive economic message, which had we had in 16, no question we would have won. So I want to be part of the solution, but my job is here in New York City.
Would you favor any potential candidate for president of the United States as a Democrat that one of the things that the candidate must do is ride the New York subway?
I think everyone.
That's America.
That is America. When you go on that subway, you see everyone. And yeah, of course, it's the example of being connected to people. It's just get out there where they are. Every candidate should do that everywhere. But I'll tell you something. I think another big factor is going to be how this tax plan plays out, because I think what's going to happen is more and more Americans are going to realize they're being bamboozled. It is a ripoff of the middle class. And I know now as a result of the election that a lot of Republicans say, oh, let's rush the tax plan even more. We need it. We need an achievement. But the problem is people are going to realize all over the country it ends up being double taxation. It ends up actually being a tax increase for the middle class and a giveaway to the rich and corporations. That's the kind of thing that will dig the Republican hole deeper. And they don't realize yet, if they try trickle-down economics again, it's just going to backfire on them.
Now, two-term mayor Bill de Blasio. Congratulations, sir. Good to see you. I'll see you on the 1 train uptown this
There you go, brother.
All right.
There you go.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Coming up.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.